Sarah from Behind on Books here, and today I'm doing a video for all you YA dystopian writers out there. You know who you are, you wonderful, wonderful people. So, the most important advice I've ever had as a writer is to read. Just simply to read. There is no other place where you're going to learn how to write and what to write than if you're reading what you want to write. That makes sense? Yeah. So if you're writing YA contemporary, you need to be reading what's going on in the YA contemporary world. That doesn't mean you limit yourself to just reading YA contemporary. You read whatever you want. Any book that you read will have a positive effect on your writing. So today I'm going to recommend some books for people that are writing more towards dystopian fiction, and I've tried to pick some books that are not necessarily the obvious ones, so we're going a little bit off the beaten track and we're going exploring into the world of the unknown. Well, not necessarily the unknown, but I'm just decided not to pick the most obvious ones because I'm sure you know what they are. So, the first book that I have picked is it's actually a series by Dan Wells called The Partial Sequence. I have a couple of the books that are going to be on this list, but mostly I've borrowed them from the library, so I've just decided that I'm going to put the pictures up instead. The Partial Sequence is such a detailed read. Like, the attention to detail in these books is just phenomenal. And they're long books. I mean, I haven't actually finished the third one yet. But as far as YA goes, they're quite chunky. And I think it's really interesting to see how the author has made the book, the story of the book, the narrative arc, doesn't necessarily go like this, it's like this, and it keeps you really interested. So it's an important lesson to learn, is how to keep your reader interested for that long. And yeah, the series, there's just not one big reveal. You figure out one secret along with the characters, and it kind of unravels others. So it's like opening a can of worms. You think, oh, secret, wait, oh, more secrets on more secrets on more secrets. And it's really interesting how that unfolds. Sorry, notes. Oh, and consistent world building. I think The Partial Sequence is so effective because the world building, there isn't any wavering in it. You don't go, oh, but how does that happen? Because the author so cleverly weaves it into the narrative that the environment and the setting that they're in just all becomes so believable, like straight away. So I thought I had to include 1984 by George Orwell. It's obviously not a YA book, but most people would have read it at school. But if not, I would urge anyone that is considering writing dystopia to read 1984. It's like canon for dystopia. I mean, it's where so many books, modern dystopian books, you can almost trace it back somehow, because the themes are still relevant today. I mean, it seems to be becoming more and more relevant, and I think that's a really interesting thing to be able to look back on and maybe reflect and evolve some of those issues in your own writing. And it's just a good read. It's a really good read. Why would you not want to read it? I've decided to include the Under the Never Sky series by Veronica Rossi. I think this series kind of blends a dystopian with a more traditional classic fantasy storyline. I think there's less focus on the oppressive system of the dystopian world that one of the main characters is living in, and it's the effect that it has on the people that are outside of that that world. I think it's really interesting to see kind of like from the outside in, and the dual perspective, the dual points of view between two characters. So if you're interested in doing a dual POV, I think Under the Never Sky, the whole series does this really well. I also chose to include Ahses by Emma Pass. I think you could probably see that back there. That one is signed, that's why it's on my shelf. I wanted to include this book because I adore the beginning. So let me just read the blurb. Ahses, the most brutal force in history. They rule with an iron fist. They see everything. They know everything. So already it kind of feels like, I mean, you could link this book easily back to 1984, couldn't you? It's that whole Big Brother is watching you thing. But the beginning of this book is so badass. I mean, the badassery, just amazing. And if you want to know, well, if you're more interested in finding out how to start your book out with a real then I think this is a good example of that. And finally, the Arclight Geology. I think it's a duology. I can't find anywhere that it's a trilogy. By Josin McQuein. I think I'm pronouncing it right. But this takes a recognised archetype of dystopia. I mean, they're living in domes, or sort of domes. There's like a shield dome thing, the Arclight. A bit like Under the Never Sky, they're kind of living in domes, and it's the kind of thing that you see a lot in a dystopia setting in a world, because the outside world isn't safe, so they have to put themselves in a dome. But the Arclight Geology seems to do something different with it, and I really think there's an interesting use of the other. So if you're thinking of including another race, or a kind of evolved or mutated kind of human or humanoid race, then I think this series is really interesting for exploring the relationship and the developing relationships, for the growing feelings for that otherness. Much like Partials in that sense, because you've got the two kind of factions, and then factions fighting factions, but then just the human relationships that can grow out of that. So some honourable mentions. I wanted to include The Fifth Wave by Yancey, just for the writing style. It's so different, and I think it deserves to be on any kind of dystopia fanatics list. Shards and Ahses, edited by Marr. This is a collection of short stories, and I think it's really interesting because there are short stories, you get a quick snapshot into different kind of dystopian worlds. And Souprint by Miranda. I love her writing. I think I've probably said this in previous videos. I love her writing, and yeah, I really like the concept of Souprint. It's interesting. So if you wanted something different, then I would definitely try that one. And then also the Silver Blackthorn Theories by Kerry Wilkinson. Brilliant series. It's a proper, I mean, it is dystopian, but again it kind of blends with kind of alternate timeline type fantasy, but really good for a strong female lead, that one is. As is Partials and the Silver Blackthorn series have such strong, consistent female leads, which I think probably make them as compelling to me as they are. I really enjoy a strong female lead. So yeah, those are just a few books that I personally would recommend anyone who asks me if they were writing young adult dystopia. If you have any suggestions or you think I should have included something on this list, then please leave it in a comment below. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, bye!